This is things that I learned about moving states with my horses. So you're contemplating moving states, or maybe you're moving states for a job, and you really want to take your horses with you, but you have no idea where to begin. This may just be the video for you. This is everything that I have learned from picking up and moving my horses from one state to another. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. As different as it is, it's not as different as I had thought. The hardest part for me personally was scheduling to view a place that I was nowhere near. It can also be just a little bit difficult if you're using an out-of-state phone number to try and call and set up viewings. Most places, I don't want to say they don't answer, but they'll wait for the voicemail to call you back, especially if it's an area code they don't realize. However, it's now becoming more common that if people are moving from one side of the country to the other, that they'll keep their current phone number until they absolutely decide to change it or have to change it or whatever it may be. You may just have to leave a voicemail and they'll call you back, or just give them a text and they'll text you back. I mean, it is the current day and age. Another big thing that I personally wanted to avoid moving into a new place with my horses is just going in and assuming. I've heard of this happening to quite a few people, and what they thought they knew versus what actually went on at the new facility was two totally different ends of the spectrum, and I wanted to know exactly what I was getting into when I moved my horses to this new facility. Start looking as soon as you know. Look for places to board. Look for recommendations on a hauler. If you find a hauler, kind of get an estimated quote. Know what you want, what you're going to settle with, and what you absolutely will not budge on in a facility. And most importantly, go in with kind of an expectation of what you want to pay, but also set a maximum price. As soon as I knew we were moving, I started to social media. I asked in state subgroups for people's recommendations on places to board. When I did that, I listed approximate price per horse I wanted. I listed that I wanted 24/7 turnout. And I also, again, asked for reputable haulers and their information. So once I found a place, I could then start calling and getting quotes. The biggest thing in doing that is know what you want. Stick to your guns on things like turnout and other things that are super important to you. For me personally, it was turnout. It's absolutely vital that my horses have access to 24/7 turnout. And it was one thing I absolutely was not going to budge on, as long as I could help it. I had spoke about kind of setting a price. Make sure to kind of have an approximate, like when you go and look at these places, you have an approximate price, and make sure that you can be a little flexible. Otherwise, you may end up closing some doors that might have actually been a really good fit for you. But also, when saying this, you also have to make sure that you have a max price. As we all know, horses aren't exactly the most, inexpensive hobby. And they're also sometimes very much accident prone. So it does you no good to be in a really high class, expensive place if you can't turn around and then afford the very basic care they're going to need, let alone if they have an accidental prone moment. When you take the tour with the facility, see if you can get some farriers numbers and recommendations. You can also, again, ask on Facebook for that kind of information. Somebody might be able to pass you along some really good information. Prices, though, can vary depending on what part of the country you're going to. For example, my basic trim price from my old state to this state went up just a little bit. But my shod price is the one that I really had to change on, and it's not that it was a really big change. I think it was only like a $10 to $15 change. It would potentially be more if we were doing more things with her current shod situation, But as of right now, there's only like a $10 difference, and I'm okay with that. She's still getting the care she needs. It's just a different way to go about it. So you've got recommendations. You found a place. They're within your price budget. So now is the time to go and set up a time to take a look. Look at fencing. Look at shelters. Look at the care of the current horses. Look at the state of the land. Just kind of all the safety aspects. When you're there, once you're there, you can kind of tell things like on how well it's maintained, the cleanliness. You can even, if you're lucky and you're there when a boarder's there and you see how they interact with their horses, you'll be able to kind of see what kind of situation you're getting into. And if you've had horses for a while, you know what I mean. If you're not a fan of, something you saw, don't necessarily rule the place out, but definitely put it in the back of your mind. All this really sets the tone on how the facility will be when you're actually there, if that is the facility that you choose to go to. If you see lots of things that just don't sit right with you, it is absolutely okay to pass. Not every barn is for everyone, and we need to remember that. So you're there. You took the tour. Make sure to ask questions. Ask questions as such as what's included in board. Is there any additional fees that they may not have already mentioned? Do they require any vaccines for, your horse to come onto the property? And the most important tip that I can suggest to you is to make sure that you get a copy of the contract before you leave. You may not, you may choose that you already don't want to board there, but you can still go through and read it in the comfort of your own home, and just take a look, read it. Maybe, how it came off is not what they meant. So now that you've taken the tour, it's time to ask questions. And the barn, at the same time, may very well have questions for you. As much as you want to make sure that you're going into the correct facility, they want to make sure that they're bringing in the correct clientele that they want. When you ask your questions, make sure to ask clarifying questions. Get to know exactly what you're paying for. Again, you can look this up in the contract as well, but it's always good to kind of hear it verbally what they're expecting. I also say this because there's barns out there that, say that they'll take you for this price, but they actually offer, something at this level. And because you're paying this price, the stuff that's offered at this level is not actually offered to you at this level. So you need to pay that level or more, potentially, to get access to all the things at said level. Again, with the extra fees, do they have a grain fee? Do they have fees for blanketing? Fees for farrier holding? Do they have a hay fee? All things to note, so that way then when you get your bill at the end of the month, you're not shocked at the bill cost, that your bill is, X amount of dollars because you didn't know that they were charging you for this. Another big thing to require is ask if they require any vaccines for those coming into their facility. Some places will require more vaccines than others. Again, that's just how they do their business, and that's totally fine. Because some places, require just the bare minimum. Me personally, at the facility that I was at in the prior state, as long as we had a Coggins and rabies, and we wormed, I think it was 3 or 4 months out of the year. I want to say 3. We were good to go. But at some of the facilities that I looked at when I came to this state, they required so many more vaccines. And I had let them know, that there's some vaccines I don't give or I can't give. And they were perfectly okay with just getting a note from my current veterinarian on why the horse wasn't getting said vaccine. Some places, though, may not be that lenient, and you want to make sure. You also need to double check on what vaccines they require, because maybe there's a vaccine that is not required necessarily in your current state, but will be in your new one. And because your horse probably has never had that vaccine, it's more than likely going to be a 2-step. that you need to give 3 or 4 weeks apart. So you need to make sure that they have that before they get on the trailer. Otherwise, they're not going to be up to date. And lastly, this seems to be an issue that I have, is make sure you have your current health and Coggins papers. This has happened twice now to me, where I purposely went to the vet. The first vet is when I moved in my previous state from up north to down south. I purposely drove in a snowstorm. It was my only days off of work that week that I could make it up there to haul them down to get to the vet. I purposely told the vet that we were going specifically for a Coggins. Everything else was just the basics. It's fine. They just needed it, but I really needed updated Coggins. They didn't pull the Coggins. Also, don't be me, but this one also falls on the vet. So the vet came, and I told him, they were getting on the trailer on the 22nd of November. It's now the 2nd of February, so this was many months ago. But I told them when they came a couple weeks prior that they need health papers to get on the trailer on the 22nd of November. And they emailed me the Coggins. I figured something in my brain was just like, okay, we're good to go, not thinking that they didn't ask me who the hauler was or where they were going or when they were traveling. Thank God the shipper did not get stopped, or that could have been even worse. So please, for the love of everything, make sure you have everything in order, because the last thing you want is your hauler to be stopped and they don't have all the proper paperwork that they need. However, this also falls onto the hands of the hauler as much as it falls on me, as much as it falls on the vet, as the hauler didn't ask for the paperwork. Which in turn means I didn't ask for the paperwork. And when I talked to the vet, when the vet was there, mind you, I was already down here, the vet didn't ask where they were going or who the hauler was. And I didn't think to ask them if they needed that information. I found out the day they came down that they did not have their papers. They had their Coggins, and they were health certified by the vet. They just didn't have their papers. So please make sure that you get that information from your vet, because the situation could have been a whole lot worse. All right, with that being said, I think that is going to be it for today's video. If you want, or if you have any ideas for video suggestions, please feel free to drop them in the comment section below. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.